Everybody, I am here with Michael Damiani and Brandon Jones, and we're here to talk about Dragon Quest XI, Echoes of the Elusive Age, which is really exciting for me. It kind of fulfilled all of my hopes and dreams and expectations, the English version of it. One person you see who is not sitting here, who probably should be sitting here, is Michael Huber. He did not get to play it. He was busy getting married at the time, but he will play it at E3, and so more impressions of Dragon Quest XI will be coming, specifically if you want to hear them from Huber. But like I said at the top of this was really good for me. It kind of ticked all the boxes that I wanted it to tick, but I want to get your perspective as people who maybe aren't invested in Dragon Quest games, don't have that much experience with them, what you thought about it, kind of initial impressions right out the gate.
I haven't really played console Dragon Quest games before.
Okay.
Most of my Dragon Quest experience is on handheld. So the only other console Dragon Quest I touched before was Dragon Quest 8.
Yeah.
Just because everyone's made a big deal about it.
Yeah.
So it was nice going into this because I didn't have the greatest experience, although I didn't give it the fairest chance with Dragon Quest 8. It was nice to go into this playing the opening town demo, the field battles, and then ending up in this like castle environment, how very traditional and comfortable it felt. It looked very good. I love the visuals of it, and I just liked everything about it. Like any of those weird fears I had about how Dragon Quest like 8 felt to me because of my irrational fears about it having a bad experience, they didn't manifest at all.
What were your bad experiences with A, and what were your fears?
The battle system seemed a little like strange to me because I was used to the presentation of Final Fantasy, like the forward face, like the enemies in front of you.
Yeah.
It seemed to be a little bit more difficult early.
Yep.
So it pushed back a little too hard at first, and I was like, wait, I'm supposed to like ease into this, then you get hard, right? I'm not sure if I'm digging this, but none of that. Like I felt like this eased you in very nicely. It felt like really nice pacing in the town. I got to like just enjoy myself, go around and talk. It felt like an old school traditional RPG, and I love that about that because I don't feel like there's enough of that look like this level of visual fidelity,
right.
though.
Exactly.
Yes.
Brandon, what did you think? It seems like you're very much agreeing with that end part.
Well, you talk about the towns and the characters that you meet are all very expressive.
Yeah.
There's voice acting, which is great.
Yep.
If I actually spend time with Dragon Quest XI, I imagine myself skipping a lot of the voice acting because... And it's just terrible. I think this is just maybe like the modern state that we're in, but when you like create a game that doesn't have voice acting in it and then add it, and then you have like a character who's stepping up to make a speech and their whole speech is laid out on the screen and I like read it and then look up and they're on like word 8. Like, well, you came here to... It's like, I already know everything you're about to say. I'm not going to wait for you to say it, click.
Sure.
So the performances were great. The character expression was really great. But I think, honestly, like I'm probably going to like... not wait for them to finish a statement that I've already read most of the time, unless I'm just like in love with the characters or like really want to see something play out. But not only was there a ton of great detail in the towns and in that city when you got to the end, but when you got out into the world, it was not just this super crazy open world, but the appearance of it was fantastic. Like being up on the cliffs and just seeing the mountains in the distance, and even in the city, like seeing like other neighborhoods and stuff like that outside of just the one area that you were locked inside.
Yeah.
And so visually, like there was no frustrations that I ever had, like getting on horseback and just taking off, seeing the enemies running up and fighting them. Just everything felt really easy to access. And as someone who's only played Dragon Quest Builders and the original Dragon Quest back on the NES, for like you were saying, to have much more familiarity with the Final Fantasy franchise, there was nothing that was weird. There were no systems. I was like, wait, how does this work? Like all the items that were available made sense. I thought, and I was surprised because I was like, oh, I'm going to know all of these monsters going in because I played Builders.
Right.
And there was a ton of crazy, fun monsters and designs and names, and they just had a really great personality to them. And
Yeah, you touched on a couple of things that really stuck out to me. You mentioned the horse, and I want to dig into that a little bit. The horse is such a great addition. Anytime you're at basically a bell, you can call the horse, you can get on it. It's really easy to get on, to get off. There's no fuss about it. And what I love about the horse is you can just run through enemies. So if you just want to get somewhere, if you just want to complete the objective of a side quest, you just want to go back to town, whatever it is you want to do, you can get on the horse, and you can just actually run through enemies.
Yeah,
like you hit them and they fly away, and it's pretty fun, and it avoids the hassle of not getting into combat situations that you don't want to be in, which is nice. But also your character can dash around and move pretty quickly on his own, even without the horse. And so just navigating these places is very natural, very quick, which is super nice. And you mentioned the enemy design, and Dragon Quest has always had great, really expressive, creative enemies. But in Dragon Quest XI, just the way that they animate everything, even when they're just waiting for you to attack, the long tongues that they have that are sliding all around, the eyes that are really wide, the bouncing that they do for all of these characters. It was fun just watching them move around, and considering you're going to be fighting a lot of enemies, I think that is really, really, really important.
The pace of combat was great too. That was a concern of mine, given that I think comparatively there are some, not only RPGs but Japanese RPGs, turn-based stuff now that like really focuses on speeding up that process as much as possible. Right. Whether it's just the system itself or whether it actually you can like speed up the actions, especially if it's like a remake or like going back to an old game. And there definitely is a classic flair to the combat in this.
Absolutely.
But my fears were unfounded. There was no battle I was in where I'm like, okay, because I think in a lot of the trailers they show off really flamboyant abilities that characters have.
Right.
And it's like, man, I don't know if I can watch that special ability, 40 times in a row, but like if I'm going to save it for a boss fight or use it for a really difficult character, or just decide that the small little slime is just going to get this huge crazy attack, then I think the pace of it was pleasant. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and they have this in other Dragon Quest games, but you can also set your comrades to automatically do like certain things, and so that speeds it up even further, which is nice. And you guys, I think, both played there were 2 demos that they had, and they said like, hey, the first demo kind of is at the very beginning of the game. It'll give you a nice introduction, but it's stuff that we've already shown, and that's what you guys played, right?
Yes.
Okay. I played the second demo, which was a little later on, and it's in this desert town, and there are 2 things that I think are really cool about that, and I wish you guys could have seen it, and I especially wish Don could have seen it for one particular reason. But within this desert town, I played for probably 40 minutes, and something that Dragon Quest has done really well in the past and was reinforced here is they're great at telling micro stories. It might be over 100 hours long, like the guy who was working on the game, at least on the English side, said, yeah, I finished it. It took me 105 hours. But within that time, you get so many little stories, and there's a little story in this desert town where you have this prince who is trying to prove himself to kind of move on to the next stage of his life, but he's a coward, and he has to get into this horse race, and he says, hey, I'm going to dress you up in my armor, and you go race, and I'll take the credit for it. We'll help each other out. And of course, some shenanigans happen, but the pace of that story, it's not like, okay, I meet this prince, and then 10 hours pass or 5 hours pass, and then we get to the next stage of that. Like, I felt like within 40 minutes, I had pretty much resolved that story, which was nice and satisfying. And the other thing is you actually get to race the horses. It's a mini game. It's a racing mini game where you get to compete, and you have to get first in order to continue the story. And that was really, really fun. And it made me hopeful that Dragon Quest XI is going to feature a lot of that kind of thing. They've shown off flying around on dragons. They've shown getting into giant suits of armor. I've experienced the horse racing. My hope is that they have, like, every place that you go to might have some fun new thing for you to engage with to keep things fresh, which over such a long course of time is obviously super important. So that was really fun. There's also, it seems like there's a lot to do.
Yes.
And things are very clearly marked, which is nice.
I goofed off a lot. I didn't. I felt bad because like that main town that you started in, I was like, bye everybody, and I just got on my horse and took off. Like there's a lot of people to talk to there. There's a lot of buildings to go in, a lot of exploration, and I just kind of got the gist of it and was like, I really want to get into combat because, like I said, like I'm curious if this combat's just not going to be for me, and it's going to be something that holds me off from spending a lot of time with this game. So I wanted to get into that. Eventually got to the town environment and ran around that town environment, picked up a lot of side quests, only finished one of them. them, but just really wanted to see how deep that environment was.
Yeah.
And it was neat seeing the trailer during our E3 trailer Hype Fest and seeing the character in that city environment that I had been in, going to all sorts of crazy places I'd never seen, going up on top of buildings and tightroping and platforming to try to get to other treasure chests and stuff. So it was neat that I avoided story and still didn't get to experience a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
That I guess I'll just get better at what your character can do to navigate. And hey, what's up there?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
And it's a little thing. It's not something crazy or super impressive or anything like that. But when you go into a town, it's like, oh, this is this type of side quest because of the coloration behind the exclamation point.
Oh, neat.
This is how I know.
And appreciate that. Love it.
Yeah, and there was another little touch where there was like a pink background behind an exclamation mark, and it wasn't a side quest. It was just, hey, if you need a little bit more information on where to go, talk to this person.
Oh, okay,
So it's
cool.
like, oh, hey, you're trying to find the prince, go to the stairs, go around the left, and it's like, oh, okay, nice. It's just a little bit of a reminder to help me along the way, which I thought was cool. Damiani, are you worried at all that Dragon Quest XI might be a little bit too traditional for you? Are you looking for something a little bit more exciting, or did you see enough in the demo that made you want to play more?
Oh, no, I'm not worried about it being too traditional at all. Just because I think so many RPGs are trying to do something different. Each is trying to find like a unique hook. Each is kind of move further, especially like, I know you probably will appreciate this a lot, Jones, about this Dragon Quest so far. The fantasy setting, the fantasy element.
Yes.
It's not going, there's no technological element as far as I am aware of in this one. We're not going to the equivalent of like steampunk zone or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And I do appreciate that. I understand that that's a lot of old school RPGs started like that, but we've since moved away from that. Everything's gone in weird directions.
Yeah.
It's nice to kind of come back to that every so often. I don't think we come back to it often enough. I think it's basically, I don't know every single one, but on the horizon, it's Dragon Quest XI and Octopath Traveler.
Yeah.
They're the two most traditional ones I see coming. Mm-hmm. And that makes me perfectly happy. Dragon Quest XI makes me perfectly happy to see it's going to be a traditional fantasy setting, and it's going to give me everything I seem to like about old school RPGs, just with these amazing production values, these amazing zones. You mentioned the stuff you saw.
Yeah.
Just the stuff that we saw. Again, just want to reiterate how good to me it looked, and how well crafted the area between the field environment between the starting village and the city, I think spoke volumes to me, just because everything felt very unique, very purposely placed in a spot. You had different paths you couldn't go yet because they were blocked off by guards, so you got glimpses of, oh, I'm going to be going these directions. You had this nice little like a little hut, this like thing in the middle with a cozy campfire. To me, that was equivalent of going on the old school 2D like RPG map, and you come across that little hut there. It's like with the old person inside of it. Hey, you're on your little journey to the city. Just stay here for the night. It just spoke it spoke greatly to me in terms of fulfilling that like traditional itch.
Yeah, there is a...
Yeah,
Go ahead.
and it's like you're a main character who doesn't necessarily know his importance and has a lot of untapped potential to discover, who is then thrown into a prison and meets a thief who then helps him break out. There's like so much about it. You're like, right. Like,
Yeah.
we've done this before, but I will totally give it a pass because it is the first Dragon Quest console game in, over a decade. And so it's like, I'm okay with it being traditional. I'm okay with kind of feeling like I've hit these beats before because it's Dragon Quest XI, and maybe some people would be frustrated with that if they've, experienced everything from this franchise. But being as distant as I am from Dragon Quest, like I could see myself putting a lot of time into this game.
Boy, I hope so. If we can get like 5 allies that have played through Dragon Quest XI and have this huge talk about it, that would be very, very, very exciting, I think. But yeah, thank you so much, Damiani. Thank you, Brandon Jones, for your impressions. There will be more Dragon Quest XI coming from us, all sorts of impressions, maybe more than you even want, but it is coming. And thank you, guys.
Oh, when you meet the King of Heliodor, put in a good word for old Cobblestone, won't you, eh? If he finds out this is the village where the luminary was raised, that might be something in it for us. If